In 2019, I just discovered watercolour. There was something about it that really drew me in to the extent I almost had butterflies in my stomach when the wet brush touched the paper. However, I was soon ready to give up as I found it extremely hard to understand this medium, and my paintings never reflected what it had in mind. I even began to think watercolour wasn't as valuable as other mediums and considered a Class B form of art. I was an inch away from giving up, but I'm here over 5 years later and I am so glad I kept at it. I want to share my experience and hopefully I can give you some suggestions so you won't give up for the wrong reason, for there may very well be a solution you haven't thought about. So stick around and watch this video till the end. By the way, I'm Fiona Di Pinto. This is Drawings in a Drawer. Welcome if you're new. On here we discuss everything watercolour and artsy really. So if watercolour is your passion too and you feel kind of stuck, be sure to click on that notification bell so you won't miss any of my future uploads. And now let's get into the heart of the topic. Let's light a candle because that's what we always do. I'm not going to go into watercolour techniques and tips too much because there's a bunch of other videos on my channel which cover these issues quite extensively, so be sure to check them out. But let's start with some footage of me finally relocating my favourite paints in a new palette, as the state of my old one is a mess. This palette contains all the colours I know I will ever need, no matter which direction my painting takes. As you will see, I prefer to use large or full pans, especially for colours I use the most. All of the tubes you will see me holding up to the camera, most of them are going into my new palette, but the full pans will be reserved for cerulean blue, cadmium red light, Indian red, Naples yellow and neutral tint. And of course, mint, which I love. The half pans or small pans will be for the colours I love to use, but who tend to get a big dent in them a little more gradually than the first 5 I listed. I'm not going to waste anything, so this cadmium red light is going to get cleaned and it's going to be put back in. So let's give it a clean. I realise this is an unusual approach to the subject, and we will also be getting a look at the process for the painting on the thumbnail later on in the video. But the first thing I want to say to you is pick your favourite colours. If you're like me, you probably have too many. If you don't, just get to know what you have and create a palette that contains a limited number of them, not 25 or 30 or more, or have tubes and boxes you have to fish out each time, or too many palettes. Create the palette with the paints you always reach for, because this will give you a feeling of security and confidence. It will always be ready and you won't have the excuse of having to look for your paints, set up your workspace. So by the time you intended to start painting, all your motivation will have been lost in the preparation for it. So it's more like the idea rather than the actual realization of the idea. Is that something that you find yourself doing? Don't pour your energy into that. Save it for creating your painting. Sometimes we feel like we have no motivation, or we think we feel uninspired. But it very often has nothing to do with that. We are just waiting too long to put thought into action, and the wave of creativity loses its strength till it dissipates completely. That creates a vicious circle of us believing we are unable to actually do any painting, and we more often than not tend to believe the voice that says that. That is the same voice that will eventually lead you to giving up if you let it. Our minds are always on the final result, eyes on the prize, as they say. We should learn to shift our focus on the process. The process is where the learning happens. It's a space where we practice techniques through play or because we've watched a tutorial and we want to give it a go. So thinking about that, about the work of art being the steps that create it and not necessarily only the finished outcome, will help you look at your art practice from a different angle. Embrace that uncertainty. It is your friend. Think, I want to paint, not I want to create a painting. The act of painting is successful for the very reason you are doing it to begin with. I know this might sound tricky, but it's easier than you think. Try it a few times and let me know. I think you'll be surprised. Before I continue, I forgot to say the palette I created could have easily contained 3 or 4 colours and it would still have been fine. I could have used it for most things. But there's always that time when you want to reach for that pink or that violet that you think you really need for this piece. So by putting these colours in there in the small pans, I have no excuses to get distracted and to go looking for them, shifting the attention on the preparation to paint again rather than the experience itself. And since I feel I have so much to say, I'm just going to keep going. And I want to say, try and paint your feelings. No matter what you want to convey or express, the first person that needs to be satisfied by the experience is you. So though it may seem tough, sweep aside the aesthetically pleasing creations you see in your mind's eye, at least for the moment. Use art as a form of release and a place to distress. Set yourself rules. Yes, this might seem like the worst advice when I'm the first to promote painting loose and freely, but just do not allow self-judgment to the party. This is your treat to yourself, and if you turn it into a self-critique session, painting with watercolour is soon going to lose its charm. You'll only notice how hard it is, and there will be nothing left but to keep that idea that you would like to paint, but then you maybe end up doing it once a month or a few times a year, and that's where you'll be stuck. Sometimes the lack of motivation comes from feeling isolated. Personally, I don't know anyone who paints with watercolour. I have proof of this because when I seriously and consistently started uploading art videos to YouTube every Sunday, my intention was to try and get as many people as possible to know about me, about what I was doing, because I wanted to create an art community. I wanted people to have a place to go if they wanted to create and feel understood and among other people who love the same thing. I think that's still written in my bio somewhere on Instagram or on YouTube here. I can't remember. Anyway, I have now watched this art community grow and people from all around the world come out of their shells. And I think it was at least 80% thanks to the sense of togetherness. We often underestimate the power of community and what it can do for us. And you are absolutely free to join us. We have monthly lives and recordings. Or you can simply join us on our Facebook group and start out that way. You'll find all the links in the description box. Paint as if no one ever had to see. This is a crucial concept you should try and hold for a lifetime. I have hidden some things in my painting and no one will know what they mean or what they are. Even if you found them, you still would not know the story behind them. This will make you feel like this is a safe space, because it is. Stop scrolling art accounts, watching reel upon reel. Very, very few of these reflect the reality of what painting with watercolours is like. In some cases, fancy brushstrokes are literally put down for the sake of filming and then immediately blotted back out. Or the brush is just a clean, damp brush, giving the illusion that it's gliding along a painting that has actually already been completed. All of this is fine and beautiful, but it's not real. And it's not so simple. So give yourself a break and stop doom scrolling art accounts. There's a very fine line between seeking inspiration and losing motivation. So in 2019, I was on the verge of giving up watercolour. Why not go for a more forgiving medium? Well, because watercolour is unique and lack of motivation is very often a wall we build for ourselves. I have come to embrace the fact that I might like my outcome, but it's not nearly as important as it used to be. There is no outcome anyway without the process. There is no process if we don't take that first step towards action. So assemble that limited or semi-limited palette with your go-to colours and paint. Before I go, make sure to subscribe to my newsletter, as something exciting is coming up in January 2025 for all of you. I will see you all next Sunday. Have a wonderful Christmas if you celebrate, and if you don't, paint. Just paint, keep painting no matter what you're doing, and I will see you next Sunday. Bye for now.